What can I do for you?
Well, I have some questions for you. I have been in the business of studying religion for a bit, and I have talked to a lot of people, and I have a lot of friends now who are Muslim and have converted, and
Okay.
it's a bit difficult to summarize everything, but basically, I have some questions for you because I'm still
Uh-huh.
unsure of some things that I would like cleared up, and especially by you because obviously I watched a lot of your videos, and you seem like a pretty good guy to ask these questions to, if anyone. So
Appreciate that.
first of all,
Uh-huh.
or did you want to say anything? Did we start?
No. You're perfect. You
Okay.
can go.
And I want to tell you before we start this, just I'm coming in with an open mind. I have no, I do want to say that I don't have any intention, but obviously that's pretty much impossible to do because obviously you are already convinced of something. But to the best of my ability, I'm going to be open-minded and rational with you. So
What I ask from people usually is just to be reasonable, even open-minded,
yeah,
like you're giving me like a lot. I appreciate that. Just even ask people, so just be reasonable, yeah. Because sometimes people don't want to be reasonable, even let alone open-minded. But yeah, well, let's have the discussion. And hopefully, we will both be reasonable.
So my first question to you is, how do you kind of prove, or what's your justification for the claim that the Quran is like the word of God?
Yeah, so that's a very obviously a common question, and that we get. And the answer to that question is, like I always say, and I'm planning to make a series on that, but we have categories of different evidences to demonstrate the divinity and the divine nature of the Quran, essentially. So, and it is the speech of God, the word of God coming directly. Now, obviously, these are many. Some of them, for example, like the challenge of the Quran. The Quran has a challenge, the main challenge that came with to the Arabic people at the time, to the tribe of Quraysh, which is to imitate the Quran. That was the original challenge. Then it was bring 10 chapters like the Quran. Then it was bring just one chapter, which is literally one line, like the Quran. And this is an objective methodology. This is not some, subjective, like Shakespeare is eloquent or not eloquent. It's none of that. There's actually an objective measurement that you can look at. In the Quran, you look at the combination of words, you look at the things that the Quran does, for example, new usages of words that existed in the Arabic language, new words that are introduced into the language, combinations of words, etc. So there is a way that you can look objectively at this challenge. This challenge can be for Arab Jews, can be for Arab Christians, can be for Arabic professors at Oxford, Cambridge, in the US and Harvard. It doesn't matter. Like anybody who speaks Arabic can take on this challenge and show us them imitating the Quran and therefore showing us that this speech is not from God. This is to the end of time kind of challenge. Other than that is the prophecies of the future. The Quran and the Hadith of the Prophet, the narrations, has tens of prophecies of the future. Unlike other scriptures, vague, very predictable things. No, we're talking about clear, specific prophecies, many of which are time-bound, individual-bound, stuff like this, that happen in the life of the Prophet, after his death, today. All of them are happening. That we can see that there is no way that could come from a human being 1,400 years ago. Also, the Quran's description of the natural world, whether it talks about cosmology, whether it talks about biology, whether it talks about anything, any field you want to look at, cosmology, physics, anything that the Quran talks about or refers to, that is not going to only be accurate, but many of the information that is present there is we are discovering today. So we are catching up with the knowledge in the Quran because the creator of the world is telling us about the world that he's created, that he's made. Now, also, Quran's descriptions of previous information about history that didn't exist in the old scriptures, didn't exist anywhere. We are discovering today, for example, through reviving dead languages, finding temples that were buried under the sands and artifacts, being able to read the hieroglyphics. All of these things we're discovering today. The Quran, which at that time, all of these were dead languages or things were buried under the sand, etc. The Quran is mentioning this information, which doesn't exist in previous scriptures. On top of that, the system of the Quran. Look, I can go on and on, basically. So there's different categories, but these are categories. Right? From each category of these, there's examples. When I say prophecies, of course, there's tens. When I say examples of the Quran's description of the natural world, there's tens. So each of these are categories that have so many evidences. But each of them alone is enough to demonstrate that the Quran is from God.
And so that's kind of the fundamental claim that there is no possible way that all of these claims together can be incorrect or come from a human source?
Yeah, and look, I'll be honest. I'll say even one of them. Like if we were to look at one, because the thing is, what you gotta do when it comes to, for example, if you can take any of the challenges I mentioned, obviously the Quran is an example. If this was from a human being, 100% would be able to imitate it. Now, with the advancement and the existence of AI, for example, AI cannot help you with that. And this, a lot of people don't understand that, but AI can never help you with that because AI is based on the knowledge that is already present. You input data into AI. AI cannot come up with something like what the Quran is asking you to do, because the Quran is essentially defined language when it's asking you to do what it does. That's what the Quran did. It completely defied our understanding of language. It used grammar in a way we don't use it, and it's still eloquent, and people fully, completely understand it. Now it's like you me telling you speak to me in English, don't use English grammar, but just be as eloquent as the highest literature eloquence, literally. In the same time, make prophecies about the future, tell me the description of the world, do all of these things at the same time. So that is an example. That is by itself enough. The prophecies of the future, they're tens. Prophet Muhammad, if you compare him to anyone in human history, nobody has been able to do this. Bringing tens of prophecies. None of them are false. Now, these are specific prophecies, accurate prophecies, sometimes time-bound, individual bands, etc. Given promises, this will happen. Because when you look at the liars in history, they give you a vague speech. They say maybe this, maybe that. They give a wide description. They try their best to avoid being like confident about the claim they make, because it's just making up an assumption. Now, you don't see that with the Prophet Muhammad. So my claim is actually, it's not just one of them. It's not one of them. But the fact is that each of them, but like if you put them all together, like there is no way, basically, under any like rational examination, could a person come and say, you know what? Oh, this is still not true. You can't.
Yeah, and I hear that, of course. So my kind of how I put this into perspective, where because I'm not gonna, obviously I can't really refute anything you're saying because I haven't read the Quran myself, but I believe that what you say is true here and now. But for me, I kind of
And
had
sorry to interrupt you. I have many videos on my channel where I talk about that. For example, I have just a specific video called "Compelling Evidences for the Truthfulness of Islam." Anybody now is welcome to watch it. Yeah.
No, I've watched it already, like I think twice.
Okay, sure.
And so I didn't want to interrupt you because obviously,
no, of course, go ahead.
We want to get all the things we want to say in, but of course I've heard about, like I've watched a video about, the literal, the literary miracle of the Quran, which is, when I've seen myself, how beautiful kind of the phrasings are and how they put words together in new ways. But for me, and I've written it down how I wanted to phrase it as well. It's kind of like, so for me, just instinctively, when thinking about how huge the universe is and how seemingly insignificant Earth and the human race is in the entire scale of the universe, to me, instinctively, it seems like for the human race and for Earth, for any of this that concerns us to be significant in the universe, I think that's less likely than for something like the Quran to happen, even how unlikely it seems, well, how impossibly unlikely it seems that the Quran could come from anything but God or Allah in this case. But like it just, because like, okay, I'm starting a bit, but I can kind of explain through natural processes like evolution. I'm going to ask you about evolution later, but just in my eyes about evolution and the laws of physics, like how we are here, not how things came to be, but like from when things existed and then, how they came to be. I can see how we have conquered Earth basically because of our minds and how intelligent we are and humans. But I don't see how, in the scale of the entire universe, the creator of the entire thing, like this impossibly large thing, and we on this little planet in this little solar system in some galaxy somewhere, like we are the chosen organism, and let alone that, like that it's humans. And I guess I can tie it into the other question I wanted to ask you about evolution. I don't want to get too long-winded, but like Actually, let's separate it. So if you have anything to say here, please do
We
that.
should. Yeah, of course. Now, the first thing I want to say is like, this is, I would call it a recycled argument from the four horsemen of atheism. That is also repeated by many of the atheists today, popular atheist propagandists of today. And now, that is such, for me, such a crazy thing. But before I just comment on that, this idea that always only we're insignificant in the universe, whatever. Before I comment on that, do you believe in a creator or not? Because that's more important now in this case. Do you accept the existence of something that brought the universe to existence?
I believe that that's actually a really good thing I wanted to talk about as well. I believe that there should be a cause to the universe to exist,
Sure.
but I don't believe that necessarily has to be an entity, like an intelligent, willful being.
Oh no, it has to be by definition. But okay, let's deal with that first before I talk about that.
But then I don't accept like creator. I would accept like a cause or some force or something.
I'll tell you that is another problem that atheists fall into, and with all due respect, it's a misunderstanding of language. Because right now you said I like potato, but I don't like potato in the same time. I'll tell you how you said that. When you say cause, the definition of cause is bring something into existence. The definition of create is bring something into existence. So when you say create, cause and not create, you're just conflating terms here, and in a way, right? So you're just essentially saying the thing and refuting it at the same time. So when a minute you agree, because cause is to bring something into existence. So if you agree that there's a cause for the universe, you agree by definition, you admit it by definition that there is something that creates the universe. Now, on top of that, you want to research what the word cause means now on Google? You want to
but just imagine this with me for a minute. So, obviously, for something to cause something else, this thing causes this thing, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that this thing, willfully with intelligent design and intention creates this.
That's now you're switching the goalpost. I wasn't talking about will yet and choice. We're talking about an intelligence. We're talking about the fact that it brings it into existence. The word create, bring into existence, cause, you can use whichever term you want. So let's first agree that this is a reality, because for something, there must be something that causes the universe, therefore something that brings the universe into existence. Yeah. Now,
I just sorry to interrupt you, but I just have to. Sorry, I have a problem with the word create, because that inherently,
I know you do.
Like creating something is like, I'm sorry, this is very.
We're coming to that. No, but we are coming to the well part and the intelligent part, because this is what is making you not want to use the word create. So we're coming to that. So you don't need to jump the gun of telling me why you don't want to use create. But what I'm telling you, if you say, I believe something brought the universe into existence, I believe something created the universe, you're essentially saying two synonymous sentences. Whichever way you look at it, it is the same thing. But I'll grant you not using the word create. This is the thing. I'll tell you the truth. I am very particular with my terminology, because atheists are very sensitive. And I don't mean that about you. I mean that generally. So I use particular. I use that particular language to make sure that the atheists don't get triggered by what I'm saying. But generally, okay, something caused that thing, whichever caused the universe. Now we talk about knowledge. The intelligent is a human term. And by the way, in the Quran or in the Hadith, what's interesting is one of the attributes of Allah is knowledge. Intelligence is not a word used like it's a word that we can use in the Arabic language. It's not used in that sense as an attribute for Allah, but knowledge is used. And we need to agree by necessity that some type of knowledge, not just some type of knowledge beyond our understanding, is necessary for you to cause. Now, that is just common sense. Like, that is irrefutable. You cannot cause, have laws, create a universe, precise measurement, all of these things that happen. Cannot do any of that without a type of knowledge. It's impossible for you to do that. Go
ahead. Okay. So the claim that to cause something, you need some type of knowledge, and not intelligence, but knowledge. That's kind of
the universe specifically. The universe specifically.
The universe.
That's what we're talking about right now.
We can take it as a principle, but sure, I'll grant you the universe specific. No, but yeah, because it works on principle as well. I don't see why necessarily you need to have knowledge to cause the universe.
Okay, so then I would recommend you research a little bit, because that would mean that your knowledge in cosmology is not strong. You're not familiar with the idea of the Big Bang, what it is, how it happens, or even any of the laws that govern our universe. If you were familiar with how precise and detailed these things are, that question would even be out of the picture. Like, for example, Martin Rees's book, you can look at that. called just 6 numbers. He's an atheist. He's an atheist. And the only way he tries to escape this intricate detail is to come up with something that has no evidence, which is the idea of the multiverse that has zero evidence. Even he would admit to that. Like Stephen Hawking is the one who brought it forward that I have no evidence for. So that's the only way he could escape it. But he knows it's so intricate and detailed and specific. We're talking about now zillions of numbers. If you were to change just one decimal, the universe wouldn't exist. We're not just talking about the universe being precise, the law, all of these things. So knowledge there, and not just knowledge is beyond any understanding that we possess today, is a necessity for the universe that we have today to exist. It's just the time that the atoms start to exist, the speed that the universe expands in, the electromagnetic waves, the way of the atom, all of these things, you can put everything together. I can go to every single specific detail of the universe, and there's no way anyone would disagree that you would require knowledge to do that cause. So this is what I was saying about being reasonable, right? So let's see if you're going to be reasonable at this point. If we're going to be reasonable at this point, Torah. So yeah, what would you like to say on this point before we move on to the will part, which is because I said I don't need to use the word intelligence. I am very happy with knowledge. Now that's why we give the attribute of all knowledgeable to the Creator. We don't say all intelligent. I don't know who does that, but it's not us as Muslims. Now, when it comes to the will, what is a will? A will is a decision between two things. Do you agree? Decision to initiate an action, which will be by necessity between one of two options. Because if you can only do one thing, you're forced. So if I force you to do one thing, there's no longer will because you can only do one thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So to choosing between two things, the Creator, whatever causes the universe, the cause of the universe, to not use the language you don't like, whatever the cause of the universe is, whatever caused the universe had two choices: cause the universe or don't cause the universe. And it chose through will to cause the universe. So you just admitted to the existence of will. On top of that, to add cherries to the cake, now we will apply that to every single thing that exists in the universe. Now, that cause could have resulted in one planet, could have resulted in two planets, could have resulted in zillion planet, could have resulted in blue planet or yellow, only blue, only yellow, only red, could have resulted in dark matter or white matter or blue matter or orange matter. Now, the fact that all of these things are precise necessitates choice because there's more than one option. And it could have been otherwise.
Could it have been otherwise?
No, it could have been otherwise. Therefore, that necessitates, it could have means you have more than one choice. It could have been two planets. It could have been three planets. If whatever caused the universe decided, no, I'm not going to cause this massive zillion of stars universe. Instead, I'm going to cause a small universe with one planet, with one star, with two stars, or whatever. Now, the fact that it chooses is the will.
The fact that it chooses to create something rather than nothing.
Yes, it chooses one between two, not create something rather than not create. Not only that, but also, like I said, everything in the universe, choosing one thing over another thing. So now, by necessity, that Creator requires a will. Now, this is just common sense. That's irrefutable, essentially. Otherwise, it cannot cause the universe. And that's why I tell you, I love the atheists. When they make the argument, like, oh, something caused the universe, you don't understand. The minute you said something caused the universe, I already have you in my hand now. You already have admitted to everything I need. Because the minute something causes, and you cannot escape that one as well. So even if you don't want to admit that something caused the universe, either way, you're stuck. Look, the truth is undeniable. You cannot escape the truth. It's as simple as that. So, okay, now we come to the questions, unless you want to say something. We'll come to the questions that you're saying about, oh, we're very small, we're very big, all of these things. Now, first, I'm going to say that this point is completely irrelevant. Because if you admit to the fact that no human being could have done this, i.e., bring a revelation from the Creator, and there is a Creator or cause of the universe, then by necessity, that is something you accept. It's not based on probabilities in here. It doesn't matter if it doesn't fit your mind that, oh, there's many stars and galaxies. It doesn't matter. You still cannot refute the fact that this human being could not have done this on his own. So that is what I would call a red herring, because it doesn't refute the argument, which is, okay, Prophet Muhammad is the messenger of God. This Quran is from what created the universe, and here's the reasons. That needs to be refuted independently. You cannot present an irrelevant point and think somehow that refutes the point that we're making. So that's the first thing. Second thing I'm going to say is this. It's funny to me that this massive universe, which the Creator uses as evidence to demonstrate its existence, which is what I was doing with you with this argument, using the universe and its veracity and miraculous nature to demonstrate to you the attributes of the Creator. That's why the Creator creates this magnificent universe. Now, what is the alternative that you're saying? The Creator only creates us. Now, imagine there's only small planet Earth. And I come to Nils. Nils, someone that created us. Ha ha ha, what are you talking about? It's only us here. Do you see anything else? What kind of creator are you talking about? We are the creators. Like, because there's nothing there. But when there is a vast, magnificent universe that is beyond our capacity, this is what brings us to the acceptance without the need to see God ourselves, to know the magnificent nature of the Creator. That's why the Quran says that. That's not my argument. That's what the Quran says. Allah says He created these heavens and He created the earth, etc. So we can know that He's all-powerful and all-knowing. So the atheist cannot come and say, oh, there's nothing that's created. Where's that creator? There's nothing here. So this is a complete irrelevant point, which is why I was smiling when you were mentioning it. But it's a recycled argument that atheists use that can, for lay public, they can fall for it. But it doesn't really change any of the variables of the argument I was making.
Okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, for sure. I would love to kind of, because I really have been listening, and it's great. This is great.
I hope so.
Yeah, and I would love to kind of go over these thoughts and maybe come back to if I have any refutations or if I'll just have to go along with you. So, but I just have one last question before someone else can come up. So that's the topic of evolution, because when I've talked when I've talked to my Muslim friends, they have been skeptical of it. I have brought up this kind of idea of like, okay, so if we are, kind of special in the eyes of God, of Allah, and we are kind of chosen in a way that dogs and cats are not, then when does that happen? Like specifically in evolution, how intelligent does the human have to be before we get chosen by God?
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm gonna do now is give a reality check to you. Obviously, in a kind and nice way, not in any bad way. But I just want to give you a reality check. Now, you said when I presented you things about, like, for example, the truthfulness of Islam, even though you can see the reason, a clear reason there, you said you want to do research and investigate more, etc. Do that, right? And that's what you've been doing, being skeptical, like saying, how can you refute this, etc. Now, let me ask you a sincere question. Now, you accepting evolution, right? In this case, you're telling us right now that evolution is true, it's a fact, and you're telling us you can just, of course. Now, have you done the same research to evolution, or did you accept it wholesale because your community and society and your school tells you that it's true?
I went to school.
And 1 second, before you answer, I'm going to ask you about details of evolution.
Yeah.
And then we're going to see if you have done your research or not. Because I meet people, and it's okay to admit I've not researched something. That doesn't mean you're a person who's not that doesn't mean you're a person who's not intelligent or something. I do not know many things. But to say that you've researched something thoroughly when you haven't is a problem. And that's why I usually ask the people, I expect sincerity from them. And then we can go into details. I can easily ask you about details. And then we would know if someone did research or not. So have you researched evolution thoroughly to the extent where you're sure now? Okay, you know how the theory works. You're sure now. You know the mechanisms. You know the criticisms. And you know what the other side has to say. And then now you're sure based on doing that you know what? Oh, okay, I accept that. Because that's what you should do before you accept it. But you accepted it first. So I'm showing just an inconsistency here, but go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So, obviously I'm not, a scholar in evolutionary theory, but I was introduced to this idea, of course, in school and by society, but then, I am the type of guy to not just accept theories either. And it's the same with me, trying to figure something out in religion whatsoever. I grew up in an atheist household, but I'm not just going to say, yeah, no God exists, period. I actually want to, see for myself. So with evolution, I was fascinated by it when I was first introduced to it in science, and I tried to understand it, as with other things. And I do think that I have a pretty good grasp of the principles that it works on, of natural selection, of adapting to your environment, and gene mutation, and of course, I don't know the fine intricacies and the words of the proteins and stuff. But I don't believe that I need to really be a scholar in it to see its practical plausibleness.
So again, me, I'm not a evolutionary biologist, right? You clearly can tell I'm not. I'm like focused in one field here. So you don't need to be an evolutionary biologist, but you can do deep research. But is the answer yes or no? Because you've just named certain mechanisms. That doesn't make you someone who understands what's going on. I'm talking about now understanding how the mechanisms work in detail, and most importantly, the point I was pointing out, the criticisms of it. That's how science works. You look at the criticisms of the model is being presented. Now, have you looked at criticisms and the positions of what they would call creationists, or do you know what the third wave of evolution is?
Sorry?
Do you know who leads? Do you know what is the third wave of evolution? Do you know what that
third wave? No. Yeah. Please tell me the criticisms.
Okay.
If I'm not,
No. Okay, so the third wave of evolution is an example of people who have a complete different way of evolution. Okay, so for example, do you know about the tree of life? Now, do you require one source or more than one source for evolution to work?
One source.
Is there one origin? Yeah, is there one origin source where then you have the species coming from and then branching, or do you have multiple?
I'd imagine so, that there is some kind of basic organism.
You'd imagine so, or you know?
Branched out from.
You'd imagine so, or you know?
No, but I can't know. No, nobody knows, but I'd imagine so.
No. No, I'm not asking you what if you know or not. I'm saying, what do the evolutionists that were teaching you in school said?
That's what they said. Common ancestry.
Yeah, common ancestry. But one origin or more than one?
One. But okay. One. Yeah, I don't know what you're doing with it, so please, one.
No, yes. What I'm doing is presenting you the fact that you're not familiar with the details of what you believe, number one, and the details of the criticisms of what you believe, but you don't apply this same methodology with religion or God. That's all I'm just trying to show you. Because majority of atheists don't know, they wholesale accept evolution without understanding what evolution is. Do you know, for example, what the Cambrian explosion is? Explosion. Do you know what that is? Do you know what the Cambrian explosion is?
I think so. It was like when it was in the water, right? And a lot of different species just exploded. No,
absolutely
no. But it wasn't.
It wasn't the water and species exploded.
No, they didn't.
Have you read Origin? Have you read? Look, let's start with point A. Have you read Origin of Species?
No.
Okay. Do you know what is chapter 6 about in Origin of Species by Darwin?
No.
Okay. It's about the problems with his theory. So one of the problems he puts is gradualism. Do you know what gradualism is?
No.
Okay.
Maybe
so I can go on. Basically, Basically, I can go on and on. But my point is not trying to show you that you don't know what you're talking about. But my point is to try to tell you cannot accept things wholesale that you've not researched. Now, the Cambrian explosion, for example, is a huge problem. And I don't think anybody who research evolution, it doesn't need like deep research, because that's a very common thing that is used against the other side, basically, that we use against the other side, which is that you see this explosion of fossils of very advanced species. Because gradualism, which is what I was telling you if you know about or not, which Darwin said, if it's not there, my whole theory falls down. But that was his belief. Now they put Darwin on the bus anyways. They say, oh, he didn't know anything. But anyways, Darwin was saying if there is no gradualism, my theory doesn't work. Gradualism means, that species evolve gradually. It's not like at one point you had the most complex species. It takes time for natural selection to work, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Now, the Cambrian explosion refutes that in a way, because we see deep in the layers of the earth, going back now in time, and we find very complex creatures. Like the tribuli, for example, certain ants, etc. Very, very, like things with many eyes, very intricate and detailed, that shouldn't exist in that time, because it should be a gradual process. Do you know how they respond to that? Do you know what punctuated equilibrium is?
Tell me.
Okay, no, because you don't want to turn this into like basically how they respond by saying, oh, some of them evolve very quickly, some of them evolve slowly. That's how they try to escape it, which is not an answer. It's just coming up with some nonsense without evidence. But my point is, I'm not trying to give a lecture about evolution, because I don't want to bore people. I have a 2-hour lecture, by the way, like a monologue I have with my friend. And you can watch his channel as well, Sabur Ahmed. He just talks about evolution. But I have this 2-hour monologue where I talk about the theory, I talk about criticism, I talk about problems, etc. So the thing is, me personally, now I'm gonna make a separation. Me personally, I completely reject it wholesale. Now I say When I say reject it wholesale, that doesn't mean that animals and insects can adapt to their environment. Of course they can. Adapting to your environment is not the same as changing from one species to another. Now, I'm talking about changing from one species to another. I'm not talking about, and all human beings come from, like this origin point, etc., and all of that origin. I don't agree with that. Now, to say animals adapt to their environment, yes, they have behavioral adaptation and this. I don't have any issues with that. I see that as a sign of God's creation. I don't have any issues with that. So let's separate that so people don't get confused. So evolution can have true things, which does not conflict with my world belief anyways. So it's truth mixed with falsehood. Now, what do I completely reject? I reject wholesale that humans have evolved from different species and that species are transitioning from one to another, coming from either 1 point origin or 5, whichever way you want to take the third way of evolution or you don't want to. Irrelevant. I reject this idea. Now, on the other hand, outside me, because I got to separate between me and what Islam says. Now, can you take the Islamic scripture and then accept that might not make sense? So basically, what I'm trying to say is I could have certain positions that are not necessarily explicit in the Islamic text. But in this case, I want to just tell you what a bare minimum Muslim can believe. So a Muslim cannot believe that humans evolved from different species. This is clear cut in the text. But the Muslim can say, okay, I want to accept that animals evolved from different species, whatever, this and that. Guided evolution, they would call it, through God and whatever. That doesn't necessarily contradict the Quran. I reject it. So that's a personal view now. So I'm trying to differentiate. I reject it, but you don't need to do that as a Muslim. You don't necessarily need to do the way I do. But I do that based on my research. I reject it based on my research. Other people want to accept it or reject it. That's their own worldview. It's not something that makes you a Muslim or a non-Muslim. Either way, coming back to our point. Evolution, this is my basic response to it, right? You can watch my 2-hour introduction on it, which is why I will show all of these fake falsehoods, the misrepresentation, the fact that it's not science to begin with. Evolution is not a scientific theory, meaning it doesn't fall under the scientific method of experimentation, repeatability, and falsification. A lot of what's happening right now is philosophy. Assuming, these species did this and went from here and did nothing that is proven with a microscope, with data, with fossils, none of that. No, just assumptions, a lot of baked stories, assumptions that they try to come up to you with a conclusion in the end because they don't want to admit. Even though the overwhelming evidence is refuting it every time, they come up with some other story. Now, so I reject that. That's my position. And evolution doesn't explain anything because I could ask you one question. Just one question. Where did the first cell come from?
Well, that's one of the fundamental problems that I have a difficult time answering. But from there, things seem to make sense. But I understand that.
No, they don't think. They don't think it makes sense. By the way, so you have this person who, like, whatever, developed or created genes or whatever you want to call him. He and Richard Dawkins repeated this, and he quoted him. I'm just missing his name right now, so don't quote me on that exactly. But you'll find Richard Dawkins' video where he says aliens could have put the first cell on Earth. So they're willing to accept that it could have been an alien because it's impossible essentially. Like if you look at how unstable amino acids are, and do you know what amino acids are? Amino acids are what makes up a protein. And then you have left-handed and right-handed, and you need one type to make one protein. And then you have millions of protein in the smallest cell. Then you have the cell surviving or they're multiplying. And then you have the environment. Look, essentially, it cannot happen. So they know that it cannot happen. And therefore, even those atheists and four horsemen and whatever, they will say aliens did it. So if they're saying aliens could have done it, I got nothing to say at this point. So this theory called panspermia, I don't know if you heard that term before, but this is what it refers to, the aliens dropping the first cell out there. It's called panspermia. You can just Google it if you like later. Either way, this is my position on evolution, just to conclude it. All right. Anything else you'd like to ask on?
I don't want to drag it out though, but it's just, tying back to the first question of, I think you said you accepted some kind of guided evolution, but then you don't accept guided evolution in humans, or what?
No. Okay, I repeat that again, but
you don't, but some.
Yes, I don't. No, I don't. But as a Muslim, we gotta separate between what Islam teaches and a personal position I can take, because this is science now, not religion. So I'm saying it's a personal position I take. It's not religious based, that I reject it because I've done my research. But For you, you can be a Muslim and you can accept some sort of guided evolution with animals, but you cannot accept it with humans. Does that make sense? So now, why can you not accept it with humans? You cannot accept it with humans. You cannot say humans evolved from other species, because the Quran is explicit that Allah created Adam directly, and it was a special creation, and Allah put him on earth, and we are his progeny coming from him, etc. So this is refuted now. So this idea of Homo sapiens, etc., you gotta put that on the side. So you can be a Muslim and accept some sort of guided evolution for animals, which I wouldn't. But you have some Muslims, and I cannot say to them you're wrong, because that's not a religious religious position that contradicts the Quran. You understand? So all I'm doing, so viewers don't get mixed up, is to separate my personal positions from what Islam teaches. All right. Anything else? So you've seen your friends. Look, you've seen your friends accept Islam. They accepted it for a reason. And that would be my recommendation to you. If you do your research, if you're a sincere person, reasonable person, which I can see you are, and like I said, I'm not trying to win. It's not about winning arguments. That's why you could go back and try to find an argument. It's not about that. It's about what's true and what's false. Okay? Yes. So if you are someone who's sincere with yourself, you're someone intelligent, that's it. Look, you do your research, come to a conclusion, and you accept the reality. Because it's the reality, it's not something like it's easy for me. Okay. Isn't it easy for me not to pray 5 times a day, wake up early in the morning, fast? Is it easier? Which one is easier? It's easier not to do it, but I do. I do it.
Told me about the struggles as well, having to wake up when you wanted to sleep, go pray.
Yes. Of course, I get my own satisfaction from that, like a spiritual one. But generally, it's easier not to do any of that. But I do it because it's the reality. It's the reality, meaning that this is the truth from God. There is no choice. I can pretend, can live a delusional life. I'm going to die one day. And I'm going to be faced with the truth. So I got to take that truth into account before I die, because I do not know when I'm going to die. And I need to implement, invest in my afterlife. Just not about investing in crypto in this life too much, She's not going to take with you to the afterlife. But more investing into the afterlife, which is going to be an eternal, never-ending existence. All right. Unless you have any more questions for me, it was a pleasure talking to you.
It was a pleasure, man.
I hope you do a bit of research on what we said. Like I said, look, you're welcome to come back on, ask me any questions, stuff like that. Like, watch the video I made, about 2 hours. If you're interested, which will give you like a background of what are the assumptions of evolution, what are the criticisms, stuff like that, right? My issues with it. And yeah, I'm not, like I told you, I'm not an evolutionary biologist or scientist. And, but in reality, what I put forward is not necessarily all based on science as well, because I told you, most of what they're presenting is just philosophy. Anyways, pleasure talking to you, Nils. Hope Allah guides you to the truth, and maybe we'll talk again. Who knows? Yeah. All right, see you.
See ya.